for joining. I know it's a long weekend, so really appreciate you giving us a chunk of your Thursday. Today we're talking about SmartList Builder, which is arguably one of the most popular and best add-ons for Dynamics GP. So we're very excited, number one, to be able to talk about the product, and even more excited to have eOne join us today to tell us a little bit about their company and their background, as it's quite an interesting one. So the format today is pretty simple. We're going to do a brief overview of sort of who's on the line, and then we'll jump into an actual demo of the product. So it is going to be a pretty long session today. Once we get into the demo, it's going to be kind of like a training session. For those of you that are already using SmartList Builder, we're going to be building a pretty complex smart list today. For those of you who are not joining, I think it's still going to be worthwhile, as I think at the end of this you're going to want it. So I will caution you that we may run pretty close to 3 o'clock, but at the end of it, I promise it'll be worth it. Jason, no pressure there. And then we'll end with some questions and, of course, our giveaways. And of course, the giveaways are strategically loaded to the end of the meeting just to make sure everybody stays on. Because Jason, no offense, I mean, I don't know if your content's good enough without the giveaway. So with that said, let's maybe move on to intro. So of course, my name is John Pozan. I've been with the ADAM and GP365 team for almost 10 years. I have Jason with me, who is the founder of ADAM and has been using GP for far too long. And we also have Nicole and Naomi from eOne. So they will do an intro in just a second. I'll give a quick intro for those of you who don't know who ADAM is. So we have been around for, Jason, going on 18 years?
That's right.
All right. So we are located in Toronto. For those of you who know the Toronto area, we're northern Toronto. So the Yonge and Sheppard area, that's a picture of our building. And a recent dinner that we did, I was actually going to update that picture with a paintball session that we did, but the picture just didn't go with the topic today. So I thought maybe I'll save the paintball picture for another day. So what do we do here at ADAM? We are a GP partner. And we do all the typical GP functions, which is we support customers who have GP. We do upgrades, we implement the product. If you guys are doing year-end closing and you need some help, we do all of those sort of typical GP partner duties. We also have created a product that we're very excited about, GP365, which is the first software as a service based version of GP. So there's no more upgrades. That all happens automatically with the platform. There's echoes there. All right. So it happens all automatically with the product. So it's a really great system. We're very proud of it. If anybody is interested in possibly moving to a software as a service type model, shoot us a note. We're happy to tell you more about it. Today's not about that, so I don't want to waste any time doing so. But maybe we'll move on and we'll let the eOne folk do a bit of an intro. So again, thank you, eOne, for joining us. I'll hand it over to you guys to tell us a bit about who you are and maybe a bit of your background.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. So for those of you maybe who don't know a whole lot about eOne, we've actually been around since 2001. We are the leading ISV in the GP space with probably over around 20,000 customers that are currently using our tools. Most of you maybe, I guess according to the polls, you guys haven't heard of SmartList Builder, but a lot of GP customers already own SmartList Builder, and a lot of them likely had made that purchase through Microsoft. And a lot of times that would have gone hand in hand when you purchased GP. So SmartList Builder was originally sold and purchased as part of GP. We actually ended up taking back SmartList Builder home to eOne around 2013, which has since allowed us to be able to add new features, make some updates a little bit more easily here in-house. My name is Naomi Olson. I am the GP channel manager and have been with eOne and in the GP channel for about 4 years now. I also have Nicole Albertson here with me, and I'm going to just hand it over to her, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself.
My name is Nicole Albertson, as she said, and I am the product manager here at eOne Solutions. I have been in the channel for we will say 18 years to date myself. 13 of those with Microsoft, and then the last 5 with eOne.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Nicole. So yeah, I'm excited for you guys to learn a little bit more about SmartList Builder today. We'll certainly be on the session, and if you guys have any questions, we're here to help you out.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. And that's actually a great point. I should probably mention a little housekeeping item here. So unfortunately, we can't hear you. So if Jason's losing you, try and type us a question, and I'll keep my eye on them and try and slow them down, and we'll pay attention to them. At the end, we will review all the questions, so feel free if something comes up, type it in the questions box, and at the end of the presentation, we'll make sure that we absolutely get to those. So maybe let's move on. And I think at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Jason, who is the GP guru of the company and is going to absolutely blow everybody's mind here. So Jason, take it away.
Oh, I think that's the first compliment you've given me in one of these webinars.
Probably the last, too.
Thank you, John. Okay, so I'm going to start off. I promise we're not going to spend a lot of time in PowerPoint because I'm going to be building some smart lists and some Excel reports, which is going to take up most of the time. But just quickly, for those of you that are familiar with SmartList Designer, I just wanted to give you the highlights of what I believe, this is sort of a personal opinion, what the differences are between SmartList Designer and SmartList Builder. There's a lot more than just listed here, so I don't want to mislead anybody in saying that these are the only differences. If you're interested in hearing all of them, there's a great PDF, I think, that eOne has that we could distribute to anybody. Just email us and we'll get it out to you. But these are the ones that really stand out to me. So the first one is that you can modify the default smart lists, so the ones that come with GP that you don't even use SmartList Designer for. You're actually able to modify those. And I find that really helpful because oftentimes it's great to have a starting point. And those simple smart lists that come with GP are a great starting point for most reports that you'd want to build. Table matching is another really important one. So as any experienced GP user will know, in a lot of places like in AR and AP, we have the concept of history, open, and working tables. So your history table is once a document is fully paid and applied. Open table is when it's still unpaid or partially unpaid, and then working tables are unposted. Well, with SmartList and SmartList Designer, there's no way to combine those tables, even though they're exactly the same structure. They are separate tables. So if you wanted to build one SmartList that shows you all of your, for example, AR transaction history, with SmartList Designer, you can't do that. With SmartList Builder, you can match those 3 tables, and you can actually create one SmartList that shows all the AR transactions, even the ones that aren't posted. So that's really valuable in a number of different ways, but that's the one that stands out the most. You have a lot more formatting options, and we'll cover some of that during the demo today, but you can also change decimal places, you can create your own option sets, things like that. Much more sophisticated calculations can be done. In SmartList Designer, you're limited to, I think, sum, count, and something else. And in SmartList Builder, you've got all kinds. You can do average, min, max, all that kind of stuff. And you can make restrictions inside the SmartList design itself. So with SmartList Designer, you can't restrict SmartLists. But with SmartList Builder, you can build pre-built restrictions for your users. You can also create multi-company smart lists. That's huge. You cannot do that with SmartList Designer. So with SmartList Builder, you can actually build smart lists that will query more than one database in GP and consolidate the data. So you can imagine the power that that would present to any company that has more than one operating company and they need to consolidate. A lot more security options. That goes without saying. It's kind of self-explanatory. We can do Rollups, which are summary smart lists. We can also create navigation lists. So those are the navigations panes in GP. You can actually publish your smart list directly into a navigation pane so people can view the smart list in line with the GP window. It also has better SQL integration, so you can build views. You can even query the tables directly if you want to, and it'll even show you the SQL query that's being built in the back end when you're modifying your smart list. The one that's most exciting, and I put it in all caps and exclamation points and so on there, is Excel reports. For me, that's sort of the gravy. It's the absolute best part of this product, in my opinion. eOne may have a different opinion, but I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I'll show you why. We're going to be demoing that feature today. So rather than get into it now, I'll just actually show you. So a couple of things.
Jason, just one quick thing I just realized I completely forgot. I think a pretty important agenda topic here. I just wanted to point out that at the end of your demo, for those of you who don't already own the product, we're going to be talking about pricing. So eOne has graciously offered a discount for anyone who does not own SmartList Builder that's part of the session. So at the end of all of this, make sure that you stick around because we're going to be talking about how much the product costs, as well as we've prepared a bit of a training package that we think you might be interested in, whether you have it or you don't. So yeah, just wanted to mention that as I missed a bullet point there. So
back
to you.
Thank you, John. It's very rare that you would make a mistake like that.
I know it is.
You forgot to sell it. Okay. Anyway. Okay. So, a couple of assumptions I'm working with here, and then I know that the poll brought back different results, but you do need to have a working understanding of SmartList to sort of completely follow what I'm going to be showing you today. I will try to pause and just give a little bit of an overview of SmartList when we get started, but even if you don't know SmartList, you may not be able to follow everything I'm doing, but at the end of this, you're going to know how powerful it is, and it'll probably give you a taste of what's possible with this product. So even if you don't have that knowledge, it just you might not absorb as much of the training, but I still think there's a lot of value there. Also need to be familiar with Excel because we're going to be working with pivot tables and pivot charts. Again, I'm going to be stepping you through that stuff, so it's not like you need to, it's not going to be an exam or anything like that, but it helps if you do know that. And then finally, we need to understand GP's core financials. So today's SmartList that I'm going to build is going to be a budget versus actual comparison. So obviously, you need to understand how budgets are set up and created in GP and have an appreciation for where that data is getting pulled from. But I will try to cover those off as much as possible while I go through it. For anybody here that wants to try to follow along with me, I would suggest you do not do that. I'm going to be moving fairly quickly because we don't have a lot of time. But what I will say is we're recording this. And so within a few days of today, everything that you're seeing on screen now will be available on our website, and John will point you to where you can pick that up at the end of the presentation. So that would give you the opportunity then to follow along. For now in today's session, I strongly recommend everybody just try to pay attention, and rather than try to use your own PC and follow along doing what I'm doing. I think I'm going to be going a bit too quick for that to be practical. And if you don't see the webinar up there in the next few days, please feel free to email John. You can, salespeople love it, love being bugged and nagged. So, feel free to email him 3, 4, 5 times an hour until you get that up there. I know he loves that sort of stuff. So spam him. Please go ahead. Finally, before we jump in, it's important everybody knows what we're using for this because there are differences between the versions. So we're using the latest and greatest of everything here. We're using GP 2018 and we're using Excel 2016. So depending on the versions that you have, there might be slight differences in mainly in the location things are, in terms of buttons and things like that. There's not a lot of functionality I'm showing today that doesn't exist in previous versions, but just be cognizant of the fact that there are differences depending on the version you have. So with that, I'm going to get out of PowerPoint, and we're going to go to Dynamics GP. So this is my GP 2018 demo instance. This is where we're going to be working the majority today. We also have Excel, as I mentioned. But before we get started, I think it's important everybody sort of understands the thought process that I recommend you go through when you want to start creating a smart list. I always recommend that you start with a model. Now, what that means is basically just build a dummy chart or graph of what you're trying to create. In Excel, it doesn't have to be with real data even. It's just a very simple report, and I'll show you one that I used for this one. So here's my model. And the reason I recommend that is, first of all, it lets you give a vision to yourself of what you're trying to build at the end of the day, and it'll also give you a sense of what data you need to mine to get that chart built. So you can see here, I just built a very simple one. We're doing a year-to-date budget versus actual comparison for a series of accounts. So this is for the selling expenses in the company. And we want a rolled up summary of our year-to-date performance from budget over actual. So this is the chart that I built, or sorry, the table that I built here to drive the chart. So we're obviously pulling in the account. We're going to break it down by month, even though we are going to roll it all up. And then we have our amounts for the budgets and the actual. So this exercise just kind of gives you the ability to visualize what you need in order to get started building it. So once you've got that, the first step is to go to GP and open SmartList Builder. Now, because we're going to be hopping back and forth a lot, I've created quick links. If you watched our top 10 series, I think it was last week or sorry, 3 weeks ago, you'll know how to add links here, but if you don't, you can always go back to the training video for that. And it's in the top 10 list, but I put these here just so that I don't have to keep navigating up to the GP menu and so on and so forth. Just makes it nice and easy. Now I'll just jump in SmartList really quickly since we had people that said they don't know what a SmartList is. So SmartList, everybody that has GP, I think 2010 and higher should have this function. And basically what SmartList is exactly what the name suggests. It's a list, an intelligent list of data. It builds lists from any area inside GP, and GP comes with a bunch of preset smart lists that are pre-built for you. So for example, if I open up, let's just go to purchasing series, for example. If I wanted to look at all my receiving transactions, I can click on this smart list, and it just provides a data dump of all the transactions that are in the system. And there's a bunch of nuance with SmartList that I'm not going to get into today. You can drill, and that'll take you back to the originating record. So it's a very powerful tool. You can also export to Excel. You can create your own queries by making searches and so on. And these two buttons here are SmartList Designer, which we are not going to be touching today. But it provides a similar set of functionality to SmartList Builder, but just not nearly as much as SmartList Builder. So that's what SmartList is in a nutshell. But now I'm going to hop out and go to SmartList Builder because that's really where we're going to start. So if I look back and think of my model that I just created, I know that I'm going to be needing to pull data for actuals and I'm going to be needing to pull data for budget. I need those two sets of data to produce, rudimentary data to produce the report I was looking at. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new smart list. Now I'm just going to call this Webinar 1, and we'll work on the budget first, I think. So we'll just call this periodic budget. And up here on the top right, you need to tell GP where you're pulling the data from, initially at least, and this will be the default for any tables that you add going forward. So I'm going to pick the financial series because we know that the budgets and the actuals are part of the general ledger, so they're going to come from financial. And now I'm going to add the table that I think I need to pull the data. So I'm going to click plus on this little thing. And you have the option of adding other smart lists in here, or you can just pull from Dynamics GP tables. And that's where I'm going today. Just to highlight something here, you can pull from all the different third-party products as well. So SmartList Builder is connected to anything that's registered inside GP, not just the native GP functionality. Today's demo is all going to be in that functionality, but if you have other third parties registered, they should appear in this list as well. So we're going to pick GP, we're pulling from financial. So I'm doing budget, so I know it's going to start, the table is going to start with the name budget. I am going to circle back and show you how you can find the correct table names a little bit later. But for now, I'm just going to scroll down to budget because it's fairly straightforward to pick this one. So it's called the Budget Summary Master. That's where it shows your budget by account, by period, right, in GP's windows. So I'm going to click that. It tells me what key fields it identifies in that table. And as long as I'm okay, I can add more if I need them, but usually the defaults are correct. And then click Save. And now it's going to pull all the fields that are available from this table. So you can see here we have Budget ID, which is the name of your budget. We have Period Date, the Period ID. Those are going to be important, as well as the budget amount. That contains the budget amount for that period. We have Account Category and Account Index. Account Index here is actually your account number. And I'm going to go over that in detail in a second. And then you've got all your segments here listed. So in this case, there's a whole bunch of segments in the demo data that's loaded in the system, as well as finally the year. So to build my list, right off the bat, I know I'm probably going to want the period ID because I need that. I probably need the year so that I know what year the budget was in. I'm going to pull in the account number, which is account index. I'm also going to pull in the budget amount. And I think realistically for now, I'm getting started. So with SmartList Builder, you're best off to sort of start slowly, view the results, come back and refine, and that's the approach that we're going to take today. And I'm going to try to take it a bit slow because I don't want to be whipping back and forth between windows and freaking everybody out. But one thing to point out right off the bat is up in the options area here, we have the ability to preview data. And I do recommend using this. It doesn't come fully formatted and it's not the proper representation of what the smart list will look like, but it just will tell you if you're even pulling any data and give you a sense of the data that's there. So let's click it and see what we get. So we're seeing the period ID, the account index, and the year. So it looks like we're getting data. It looks valid, so we're good. So I'm going to go click OK. Now, oh, and one thing to point out. So notice the account index is giving this strange number. This does not look like an account number to anybody, and that's because it isn't. By default in GP, the account numbers that you see are actually stored as indexes in the tables, but SmartList Builder has a fantastic tool that makes it really easy. You just click on the field here where it says account index, and if you click this blue arrow, and you click account index, show account number, instead of showing that index number, it will actually show us the account number. So that's something really handy that you can do and makes life really easy for getting the actual account number rather than building it yourself. So once we've done that, maybe we'll also change the name of this field from account index just to account. And let's save it and go to SmartList and just see what we get. So when I click on SmartList, it's going to say it's detected that changes have been made using SmartList Builder. And do I want to update the tables? I'm going to say yes. And now if I go to my financial area, which is where I created the SmartList, I should see one for budget, periodic budget. There it is right there. So when I click that, voila. So I'm pulling the year. And again, we're using the sample company, so it's in 2026. It forces everything into the future just because it's sample data. We have our account number, which this looks more like it instead of that account index. So we have our 3 segments. And then we have the budgeted amount and the periods. Now, on further thought, when you look at these accounts, you can see here that we're segmented. So we have multiple segments, and we have accounts. For example, the middle segment here is a natural account number, the actual account number, and that's repeating because we have more than one department that's using that account. What I want in my SmartList is a roll-up. I don't want to see it by account, by department by department. I actually want to see the totals rolled up. So maybe account isn't the best approach for me to take. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back to SmartList Builder. I'm going to open the SmartList again. Oops. And instead of using the account number, I'm going to undo that one. And I'm going to go to the segment. So these are the segments in order, segment 1, 2, 3, 4. We only had 3, but obviously in the system supports a lot more. But segment 2 contained my natural account. So I'm going to go and select that, and then we're going to save and go back really quickly and look at what happened. And this back and forth process is the proper way to build a SmartList. You always want to check your work. Word of caution, if you make a ton of changes without checking and then you go and check, you won't know which change broke your SmartList. So it's always a good idea to check and see that you know what's going on. So now we're getting them rolled up. Not rolled up, sorry, but we're not looking at the entire account. We're just looking at that natural account number. So the next step that I need to perform here is I need to roll these up. So I'm going to close out of here, and we're going to, before I do that, we're going to do some formatting. So I'm going to go back to SmartList Builder. And we're going to change the column order. So first of all, this name is terrible, so I'm going to go back to the SmartList here, and this I'm going to call account. And now let's go back to our columns. And I think the order should be something like, this is the order of the columns, the way they will appear. So you click on columns up at the top here, and it lets you predefine what order you want them to appear. So I want account, year, budget, period, and then budget. Okay, and then we'll go back to SmartList and view our changes one more time. And here we go. So now it's appearing in the order that I wanted, and it is just the natural account number that's showing. And now, thinking this through again, going back to my model, I said I only wanted to see sales expenses. So that is probably something I need to filter out on, right? Because I'm seeing all my accounts right now. There's no filters. But in order for me to filter based on the account, I need to know which category it's in, because my account category drives selling expenses. So if we just hop out quickly here, and I'll go to the financial window, and we'll look at our account setup here. So if I just pick, let's pick this account. $65.20. Oops. Let's click look up there, $65.20, and then I'm just going to look up. So this is one of my sales accounts. It's a travel. So we can see that we have these three segments. When I select one of these accounts, you can see it's in the category called selling expense. And that's what I wanted to filter on. That's what I want to show in my SmartList. So to get at that, I'm going to have to add some other tables. Now, this brings up a great question. How do you know which table to pull in? Well, SmartList Builder has a great utility for finding that out without having to dig. So if you have the window open that you know contains the information, if you just take note of the name of the window, so account maintenance is the name of this window, that's where I can get my information. If we go back to SmartList Builder, and I'm going to add another table here. So I click the plus symbol, and it's a GP table. Instead of, scrolling through this entire list of tables here, I can click on this magnifying glass, which brings me to a lookup window. So it says, what do you want to search by? Usually you want to use window, but you can also use field names if you want. So window, so the form was called account maintenance, right? So there it is there. And now it tells you all the tables that are being used on that window. Well, I want to know the account itself. So for example, account description, and now it narrows it down. So the name of the table is called account master. So I'm going to select that. Now the account master itself, and before I move on, so as soon as I select that, it brings me back here and it asks me, how do I want to link these tables? Usually it will predefine the link for you, and it's usually correct. There are some cases where you have to populate it manually, but usually the field names will also be the same in both tables when you're linking. So it's pretty easy. This one linked by itself, so I don't need to do anything here. Another thing to note is this link method. So there's two options, equal and outer join. So if you have it set to equal, it means that any record in table A and in table B that match will be returned. If you set it to left outer join, it means that even if records in table A don't exist in table B, the other way around, it will still return those results. So it's a way of filtering the data a little bit to make sure that you're getting data from both. In our case, we want equals because it is a match. So I'm going to click Save. And now we see I have my account master added to the SmartList. Now I still need to go one step further because what I actually want is the account category. Now you'll see down here, we have our category field, this account category number. Well, I don't want the account category number. I want the account category description. I want the thing that says selling expense. So I'm going to go and drill one more level down. So I'm going to add another table. This one's going to be called account category master. Now when I select this one, it didn't link it automatically. So I'm going to click plus and show you how you do that manually in case you ever come across that. So this is the from and the to. Again, usually they're the same name. So we're going to be linking on account category number because that's the common field in both tables. So once I do that and click save, you see it populates your link, and then you can click save. Now I can simply add that description into my list. And one other quick thing I'll jump into here. So I'm just going to click off. By default, it's going to show. So these two columns here are important to describe as well. So display means that the field won't show by default, but it will be available for the user to add manually if they want to, whereas default are the ones that actually appear on the SmartList when you first launch it. So that's the difference between those two fields. So we've enabled all the fields to be added, but only a few of them are going to default. So I'm going to click Save, and let's go back and run our SmartList now and see what we get. So there's our periodic budget. And look at that. Now we're pulling in all the various categories, which would allow me to filter this right here if I wanted to. But before I start doing that, I'm going to continue to round out this SmartList because I want to have it finished before we start filtering. So another thing we need to do is we need to roll up because, again, it's listing the same account. Those are all for different periods and different years, but also it's potentially for different departments within the same period and year. So I wanted to roll it up, and here's an example. So this account here has a 2026 period 1 for this account as well as this one. These are probably two different departments, but I want it to roll up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close out of here, and I'm going to show you a really cool feature of SmartList Builder, which is called Summary SmartList, and this is something that is not available in SmartList Designer. So if I click on my webinar again, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unselect all of these records because when you build a summary smart list, you don't want to have users adding additional columns to it because, again, it is a roll-up and it's going to treat it differently. So I'm going to unselect all of these fields so they don't show at all. And then I will add on back the counts that I need. So I needed this one, which is our account number. Call it that. Oh, sorry, this is wrong one. I want to go up here. This one. So we're going to show that. We're going to show our period ID. We're going to show our budget amount. We're going to show our year. And we're going to show from the account category master the category description. And I'm going to go up to options and then summary. And this is where you go to create a roll-up. So as soon as I enable Summary Smart List, it gives me the options of how I want to treat those fields. So we usually need to modify the defaults. So it's going to count the accounts. That's not what I want. I want to group by the accounts. So I'm going to save that. Budget amount, I do want to sum because it is a roll-up. And period ID and year shouldn't be sums. They should also be group bys. Okay, so now we've got these four pieces and as well this one. So this is the account category description. We don't want to count those either. We just want to group by. So now we're grouping by all those fields. I'm going to click Save. Save again. And now let's hop out to SmartList and see what we get. All right, it looks like it's rolling up properly now, and I'm only getting the accounts listed once per period per year, so that's exactly what I was expecting. Now, because we finished, I think, pretty much building this, I'm going to go back and reorder these columns, so it's all ready to go at the end. I'm just going to move this over to here, so let's close out. Go to my columns up at the top. And I'm going to rename that. It's too long. So let's just call it category. And now we'll move this up. And we're going to click Save. And now I think I've got my smart list to a place where it's showing me the data that I need to feed. But now I need to narrow the results because it's giving me too much. I only want for 1 year, so I only want for 2027. And I only want to see selling expenses, budgets for the selling expense category. So I'm going to do those filters right inside SmartList. So for those of you that are familiar with SmartList, you'll know what I'm doing. I'm going to go up to my column, and oops, not my columns, I'm sorry, to the search bar, search button, and I'm going to select, I only want to see where the category is equal to selling expense. And I also want to see only where the year is equal to 2027. And I'm going to click OK. And look at that. We're pulling in good data. So at this point, my smart list is almost ready for me to export to start creating my table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as a favorite so that I don't have to keep redoing those queries. And we're going to call this periodic budget webinar, and I'm going to save it just for my own user ID. And now you'll see that that's been added here as a favorite, so next time I come in, I can just click it and it will call up with my filters. Now we need to create the same thing for actuals. So I'm going to go and do that now. It's going to be very much the same procedure, but we'll go through it again really quickly. It'll be a good reinforcement for everybody. So we're going to go back to SmartList Builder. And I'm going to create a new smart list. This time I'm going to call it Webinar 2. And we'll call this Periodic Actuals. And again, it's pulling from financial tables. And I'm going to add my first table from Microsoft GP. And I know from experience, this one is called Account Summary Master View. Okay, it contains very similar data as the Budget Summary Master. So I'm going to go ahead. It's already got my key fields. I'm going to click Save. And because I've done this before, I should know most of the things I need to do. So I'm going to, first off, take this account so that I'm doing the same thing I did with the other list. So we're going to say account. We're only going to include the middle segment, which is our natural account number. I need the year, I need the period ID, and I need the period balance. Now I also want to add that category because I need to filter down on the account category as well. So I'm going to go through the same exercise, add a second table. This time it's still from the account master because they're all sharing the same account master. It links automatically. We're going to click save. And now I'll drill further down into the category master so I can get the description. So now again, account category master, it doesn't link automatically, so I'm going to click plus, and I'm going to say from account category number to link to account category number, and save. And now I'm going to unselect everything. Should have done that at the beginning, I missed that step. Because again, we're going to create a summary roll-up, same way as we did with the other one. And now I'm only going to include the accounts that I need. So we're going to grab year, period ID, account, period balance, and then we'll go here and we'll put in our description. And now I want to order the columns in the same way so the tables are side by side, look exactly the same. So we had account first, then we had our description, which I want to rename right now. So let me go here. Let's call it category. Go back to the column. Now it's got the name the way I want to see it. I'm going to move that up. Then we had year, period, and balance. So it looks like the table structure is the same. Last step is to go and make this a roll-up. So I'm going to go to Summary in the Options menu. I'm going to check off Summary Smart List. I'm going to change this so that the account is grouped by, same way the other one was. The period balance is going to be a sum. Period ID we're going to group by. The year we're going to group by. And finally, the account description we are going to group by. And let's save. And save there, and then go see what we get. So when I look at my periodic actuals, the table should look very similar to the periodic budget, but it should have actuals in it. Now, one thing that I'm going to get to highlight, another functionality of SmartList Builder, is notice we're pulling in period 0 here. That's the balance brought forward period, right? So I want to eliminate that. I don't even want it to be an option for people because it's confusing. Now, with SmartList Designer, you can't do this, but with SmartList Builder, I can go back to my SmartList, and I can go up to the Restrictions button, and I can set preset restrictions in here. So I am going to add that. I'm going to say from the account summary master, the period number, period ID I think it's called, right there, should not be equal to 0. And then we click OK and save. And now when I go back, we should see that same data set with all of the balance brought forward periods eliminated. Voila. And now I need to do this same filtering that I did on the original table, the budget table. So I don't want to see all these other accounts. I just want to see my selling expenses, and I only want to see the year 2027. So we're going to go up to our search, and I'm going to select category is equal to selling expense, and where the year is equal to 2027, and we're going to click OK. And looks like we got good data coming in here too. So now I'm going to save that as a favorite. We'll call this Periodic Actuals Webinar. And I'll just add it for my own ID. And now we've got it saved like that. So now, if I want to create my Excel chart, I need to export this stuff into Excel. So with SmartList, that's easy to do. We just go up to the top here and we click Export to Excel. And it will dump it into a new Excel table. Just to keep the confusion, minimize confusion here, I'm going to close that model we were working on. So there we go. We got our periodic actuals in place for 2027. for just selling expenses, and these are the natural accounts. And I'm going to convert this into a table, just because it makes it easier. So in Excel, we go up and we go Format as Table. I like the blue design, nice colors. We'll click OK, and there we go. So now that's formatted as a table. I'm going to rename the tab here just to make it easier to see what's going on. We'll call this Actuals. And the other thing I'll do is name the table Actuals. So if you go to the table name here, just because it's easier to reference it, we'll call it Actuals. All right, and then we're going to go back and dump out the budget. So there's my budget favorite that I saved before. And I'm going to click on Excel. And it'll dump all that information into Excel as well. And now I'm just going to select that same range. Oops, too far. And we're going to Format as Table. Use the same color scheme. Click OK. And there we go. And I'll rename this. We'll call it Budget. And we'll also call the table Budget. Now, it doesn't help me that these aren't in the same Excel spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do is move this into the other worksheet. So if you right-click on the tab and click Move or Copy, it gives you the choice of picking another open worksheet. So there's the other one, and we'll put it right there. So now we've got them combined into one. So we've got our budget and our actuals. Now, the challenging part with this piece of the puzzle is to get these two to combine. So a function that we have in in Excel, starting with I think 2013, don't quote me on that, is the concept of Power Query. So if I click anywhere inside the table and I go up to Data, we have this Get and Transform Data. So I'm going to click From Table Range because I'm doing it from a table, and I'm just going to make these two tables into queries. Because once I build two queries out of them, I can combine those queries and build a single data set, which is what I need to build my chart. So if I go up here, we don't need to do anything in here. I'm just going to save it and load it, but I'm going to load it only as a query. Takes a second. And we're going to only create the connection because I don't actually need to display the query anywhere. We're going to click OK. Basically, I just created a copy of this table in a query format. That's all I've done. And I'm going to do the same thing with actuals. So again, you just make sure you're somewhere inside the table. You go to the Data menu in Excel, and you click on From Table. And we don't need to do any manipulation, so I just go Close and Load, and I'll close and load too. Only create the connection, and click OK. So now we have these two queries, which are basically just representations of the table. But what I can do once they're built as queries is I can right-click on my budget, and I can say, let's merge. And it brings up a merge dialog where I can pick a second table. So here's my budget table, and I want to merge it with the actuals table. Because we have these four common fields, that are all the same. So what I do is I pick the four fields in both tables that are the same. And down here, I tell what kind of join. So even if there's no budget data, I still want to pull the actual. And if there's no actual, I still want to pull the budget. So I'm going to select the option to do a full outer. So it's going to return rows from both, regardless of whether there's a match. And then I click OK. And it builds my query for me. And this one, I will actually let it build as a tab. So I'm not going to just load it as a query. And we'll call this combined. And I'm going to close and load and let it build it as a spreadsheet. We'll move that to the end here. So we'll call this tab Combined. And my table name is also called Combined. So now we see here that what we're getting, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I've got to go back. Let me undo that. I'll just delete this. Well, let's try that one more time. I'm sorry, I missed a step. So we're going to merge the tables to actuals. We're going to pick our four fields, do a full outer join, Click OK. And the step I missed is I forgot to tell it for the budget table which field, or sorry, from the actuals table, what did I want to see? I don't need to see a subtable. I actually only want to see, we'll unselect all of these. I only need the balance, and we'll click OK. Right now we're actually getting, null means that there is no actual for that particular period, but we're getting the data for the actuals rather than the whole table. And we'll call this combined again, and we'll close and load. And again, I'll just move it over. We'll call it combined. And voila. So now we've got by account rolled up by period and month, the budget amount versus the actual. So really, I have all the data I need to build my graph at this point. So I'm going to go and create a new tab, and we'll call this our chart. And we're going to insert a pivot chart based on the table called combined. And we'll click OK. And so what we want to see in the values area is going to be the actuals and the budget. By default, it tries to do a count, so we're just going to change the way it's dealing with that. It should be a sum, so we're going to change it from count to sum. And now we're seeing a side-by-side of all the accounts. And if I take my account and I drag it down into this axis, now it's breaking it down by account. And that is a recreation of the table that we originally wanted. And I have to say, this is a selling expense. The actuals there in that first account look pretty out of whack. I guess that's what happens when you let salespeople run their own finances. No offense, John.
Probably, is that my Vegas trip that's doing that?
Yeah, is that the time that you ended up meeting Mike Tyson at the hotel with the tiger and stuff?
Yeah, something like that.
Anyway, okay, so we've accomplished what we set out to do, but there's one big problem with this. I have to do this every time I export. I'm going to have to recreate the pivot tables, recreate the queries, merge them, and recreate the chart. And that's a pain in the butt. So this is where I get really excited about SmartList Builder, which is called Excel Report Builder. And this is what I think is really cool. So let's go and save this. This is pretty cool, but it's a lot of work on a monthly basis to maintain this. So let me just save this off here as, we'll call this static example. Right? Because the data, if the data in GP changes, this is going to stay as is. You have to re-export everything and recreate all the stuff I just did. But what we can do, let me just get out of Excel here for a moment and get out of SmartList. In SmartList Builder, if I open the SmartList that I just created, there's two of them. I'll open the one at a time. I have the option of duplicating this. So if I go to Options, I can select Duplicate. But rather than creating a duplicate SmartList, I'm going to create an Excel report and click Duplicate. And this is where things get really cool. So now we've got our SmartList that we built in an Excel, basically, format that we're going to export. Now, what I need to do, a couple of things, because the user's not going to be able to do those restrictions that we did, where I limited it to year 2027 and where I put the restriction on selling expense, because they're not going to have a chance to do that because we're not going through SmartList. It's going to go directly from here to Excel. So I need to add those restrictions in here. So I'm just going to click and add. So let's pull from Budget Summary Master, where our year is equal to 2027. And then we also need that restriction based on the account category master, category description being equal to selling expense. So now we're pre-filtering the report that we're sending it to Excel. It still has the fields that I wanted. And I believe if I go to here, I need to give it a name. So we'll call this budget. Let's make sure we got our columns. Oh, it's being used. I'll call it Excel budget. So make sure they're in the correct order. So we wanted account, and then we want year, or no, then we want category, then we want year, and then we want period and budget amount. So this is just the order in which the columns will appear inside Excel. And I think that's all we need to do. So I'm going to go and publish this. So this is the publish button. Now you have a bunch of different options with these. You can publish them to the reports library that's built right in GP. You can also send it to a SharePoint site, or you can send it to just a file anywhere. So for simplicity today, we're just going to set it up as a file. I'm going to put it in this folder here that we have open, the webinar folder. Let me just copy that. Put it in that folder, as well as the Excel report itself will go in the same folder. And we have the ability to control permissions and stuff like that. It's all fully integrated with Microsoft GPU security. So once I click publish and I go to the folder, we see that there's two files generated. The first one here that doesn't have an icon, that's the data connection. And then this one is the periodic budget. It puts TWO because that's the name of the company. It's the World Online, it used to be called. So that's the acronym for it. But I'm going to open this up. And let's maximize that guy. And we're going to enable the content. And look at that. It's pulling the data directly from GP without SmartList. So even if the data updates, so even if the data updates, this is going to get updated. Now, we need to do a couple of other quick things, but let me get out the other report because we need both of them to combine. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to do some housekeeping. Let's rename this. We'll call this budget. And then I'm going to save this and close it. And then let's go grab the other one. So back to GP. So webinar 2 has our actuals. So we're going to do the same thing. Go to options. We're going to duplicate. We're going to change it from SmartList to Excel report. Periodic actuals is fine. Okay. We need to do those same restrictions. So we already have the restriction to limit the period. The balance brought forward period is still there. But we're going to add our account summary master where our year, year is equal to 2027. And then we're going to add another one where our account category master, description of the category, equal to selling expense. We're going to save. And let's just make sure our columns are in the correct order. So to get at the columns in Excel, it's up here in the report type. This little blue arrow shows you the column order. So we want the same order. We want account first, then category. Oh, we're missing, and sorry, year's there. Down. Year, period, and balance. Perfect. And then we'll publish this guy. Need a name, so I think we'll call this Excel Actuals. Publish. And I'm going to do the same thing. We'll go to a file. We'll use the same folder. And let's publish that. Oh, should put a trailing slash there. And let's go publish. And now close that down, go take a look at that one and make sure it looks correct. So here's our actuals. I'm going to double click and open it up. And it looks good. So again, we need to merge these two files into one. So what I'm going to do, let's call this actuals just before we forget. And I'm going to close this. What I'm going to do is rename the first file that we created there. We'll make that the master. So we'll call this budget versus actual. That'll be our master sheet. So we'll open that guy up. We're going to get. I know
we're just about out of time here, so we might run a little bit long, but I'll be quick on my part.
Okay. Okay. So let's open up the actuals. And again, we're just going to right-click and we're going to say move this. And we'll move it into the budget versus actual. We'll put it at the end. That's okay. It's telling me it might take a while, but it doesn't. So now we've got them combined into one Excel spreadsheet. Now we still need to create our queries. But before we do that, let me rename these tables before I forget. So we want this to be called budget. And we want this one to be called actuals. Okay, and now we need to create our two queries. So we go to we highlight, click somewhere in the table, go to data, from table. Now we do need to do one more thing because the summary smart list that was rolling up is no longer, is not rolling up anymore. So we need to do the roll ups in here. So I'm going to go and group by. And we need to use advanced, and we're going to group it by account, year, and period. And click, and then the column that we want is called, this is the actual we're working on. Actuals? No, this is budget. So budget, and we want a sum, and the sum that we want is on the budget amount, and we'll click OK. So now it's rolling it up for us. It's calling it budget, so we'll click close and load. But we won't create a tab, we'll just create the connection. And now we need to do the exact same thing with actuals. Click somewhere in the table, create from table. We will create our groupings. So we want account, year, and period. This time we want a sum. This will be the actual amount. This time we're doing a sum again. And this time the field is the period balance. And we'll click OK. So now we should have our two queries ready to go. So we're going to close and load that only as a connection. And now we do the same thing. So we'll go to our queries. We have the two I just created. We'll right click on this one and merge it. And we're going to merge it with actuals. Same thing, we're going to choose a full outer join. And we're going to do it on these three fields. Click OK. Now we don't need the whole table. All we need is the actual amount. So I'm going to click here and unselect and choose just actual. So now we're doing the same thing. We're seeing our budget versus actual comparison. We'll call this combined.
It is.
We're almost there, folks. Now we're going to close and we're going to load this one as a spreadsheet. And again, I'll just move it over. All this combined. And guess what? We're ready. Now we can create our chart. Let's rename that guy. And we're going to insert a pivot chart based on our combined table. And we're going to drag our actuals and our budget. But we're going to make sure they're both set to sum. There they are side by side. And now we drag our account down into the axis. And boom. Now the difference between this one and the one we created before is this is live. So if data changes inside GP, it will update the data here. And just to give you a sense of what that looks like, if we look at our actuals here, I don't know, let's pick, I think it was 6520 I was using. So you notice we only go to period 8. There is no period 9, which would be September. And in fact, none of them have a period 9 because that's all the data that was loaded. So let's save this file, close out, and I've prepared a transaction here. I'm just going to grab and copy this. We'll go back to GP, head over to the GL. We're going to do a simple GL entry for September, so period 9. So this is our webinar test. And now we're going to paste and we're going to poke. So I'm adding $2,000 into the period of September for that 6520 account. And we don't care about our report. Now let's go back and take a look at what we've got in our Excel report. So as soon as I open it, theoretically, where is it? Budget versus actual. As soon as I load it, it should theoretically refresh. If not, there is a refresh button as well. And do we see a period 9 somewhere? There it is. So every time this gets refreshed, it's pulling live data, updating this chart. And this chart can be embedded in SharePoints, websites. You can save the file on a network share, and anybody can open it from there. So I think that gives you a sense of just how powerful this tool is. This is just one example how you could use it, but it really is endless. Anything you can dream up, you can create. And with that, I can tell John's biting to get me off the...
Yeah, the curtains are closing.
Yeah, all right. They're going to pull me out. Thanks for watching, everyone, but I'll let John take over for now.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. That's very helpful and very cool. The possibilities are definitely endless. So I just wanted to take our last few minutes here and quickly talk about pricing. So if you like what you see and you don't currently own SmartList Builder, eOne has been nice enough to provide us a discount for everyone who joined today. So they're giving $500 off to anyone who wants to buy the product. Just email me if you're interested in the promo code, and we'll figure out the purchase side of things. We've also came up with a fixed price training and implementation package. So if you decide that you would like to implement this product, you can either, of course, do it yourself. Alternatively, if you would like, for $1,000 Canadian, we'll install the product for you and give you a day of classroom-style training. So we can build reports together, and we'll train everybody in the room to make sure that they can get the most out of the SmartList Builder tool. So hopefully some of you guys will take advantage of this. It's a great time to save some money on SmartList Builder, and it's one of those tools that once you have it, you can't imagine life without it. So I really hope that you take advantage of it. And the promo ends at the end of April. We're also going to be doing one on Smart View in a few weeks, so stay tuned for that. So just quickly here, guys, before we wrap up and we do some giveaways, we have 2 events coming up. We have one on Smart View, which is another eOne product, coming up on April 19th. There's a promotion for that product as well. They're doing $500 off there. So we'll do an example of, kind of what Smart View can do. It'll be a much shorter session, probably 30 minutes or so. So that's one that I definitely encourage you to join. It's a great way of giving access to GP data without a license, and we'll go into more of that in the session. And the next one after that, we're doing one on Word templates and document attach within Dynamics GP. So a whole bunch of people emailed me over the past week different ideas, and you're going to hear from me. Mainly the people that have been suggesting Management Reporter. So if you have ideas that you want us to cover, let us know. If we pick your idea, we'll send you a gift card as a thank you. Really appreciate the feedback there. And again, Management Reporter is going to be added this summer to our list of topics to cover. So just last thing here, we really appreciate the support, guys. I know that there is quite a few ADEM customers on here. Thank you for being a customer and letting us support your instance and working with us. We really appreciate it. For those of you who are not currently working with us, we do have a promotion that we've just kind of started up as kind of a loyalty program where we're giving 5 hours to all of our customers who have us associated as partner of record each year, just as a way for organizations, especially smaller organizations, to kind of be supported free of charge. So if you're interested in having us support you, again, no cost, 5 free hours, let us know. And you're seeing some sort of recent videos and webinars that were posted. If you miss a session or you'd like to refer back to today's, if you go to gp.365 or gp365.ca and then go to the resources section, you'll see all of our webinars posted there, as well as some blogs and tips and tricks that we post every usually few weeks. So check back there for sure. And I wanted to send a thank you out to eOne. I think I may have muted one of you just because I was hearing some feedback. So really appreciate you guys joining up. Sincerely thank you for all your help and guidance and making a great product. So eOne, thank you guys. And with that, I think we'll end off. Really appreciate your time today. Let's do the giveaways.
We got your giveaways.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I'm not forgetting that. So today I entered in the names that were on a few minutes ago. So they're randomly selected Kelvin C, Karen M. Hey, is that the Karen M that I know? It is the Karen M that I know. Hey, Karen, lucky you. Who else do we have on here? Bonnie G and Olga P. So all of you will be hearing from me. Well, it's a long weekend, so you'll hear from me on Monday with your gift card. So thank you to everybody. Congratulations to the 4 winners. And we'll talk to you guys soon. So yeah, thank you. Jason, kudos. Thanks. Great job.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for paying attention.
All right. Have a good weekend, everybody. See ya.
Happy Easter. Bye-bye.